Alex, I read that you work on manuscript for a really long time, and I would like to know how what happened in the world influenced you during the writing process. I'm thinking about the Me Too movement, but also about the new wave of feminism, for example.
I think that I would say those things influenced me because they're part of a general conversation, a general cultural conversation. And so in a way, if you were living through that same period of time and you were not influenced by them, it would almost be like a conscious decision to not be influenced by them. So I would say I was influenced by them, absolutely. But at the same time, I think it's worth saying, or for me, it's worth saying that the issues surrounded by Me Too, of course, predate Me Too. Mm-hmm. And it's not that nobody was ever saying the kinds of things that were said in Me Too. People were saying them. It's just they weren't being listened to on such a wide canvas, on such a broad, with such a kind of bright light shone on it. It felt like in a way, I almost feel like the sort of quote unquote success of Me Too relied on all the people who'd been ignored beforehand, because it was like pressure had been building up and building up and building up and building up until eventually there was a succession of incidents such as Harvey Weinstein that made it impossible to ignore, and it was like a floodgate opening, something like that.
In the last few years, I've noticed that many people feel the right to tell other people what they can or can do, even when we're talking about art, any form of art. Yeah. I would like to know, what do you think about it? Because you're a man and you wrote and direct a movie about a woman and about really particular themes.
Well, that's a complicated question. It's got a slightly complicated answer. I think that the first thing I would say, but these are two separate things, is the first thing I would say is that my personal position is that it would be wrong to tell anybody what they can or can't write about. That I think that it's actually fundamental that you allow people to write about anything. Now then people could in effect censor it after it's been written by refusing to read it or say they don't like it or whatever it is. But I would be very nervous of a situation where in an anticipatory way you would prevent people from trying to write things. That seems sort of very, very, very problematic to me. That said, as a separate answer, which is really not connected to the first, I would just propose something to you, which is that when I write a story, the reasons why the story exists and my motivations for writing the story that are not necessarily obvious. And so it's possible to make an assumption about my motivations or an assumption about what the story is about that is incorrect, or at least incorrect as far as me as an individual is concerned. So in the case of Men, I could see why it could look, you could say, look, this is a man writing about a woman's experience, and that would be something that could potentially be put into the category of the first thing that you were talking about. But there's another way of looking at it, which is that as a man, one is being made aware of things other men are doing, and you could be made to feel uncomfortable or even horrified by some of those things. And then, and this is crucially important, on top of that, as a man, you might sometimes have thoughts or impulses yourself that make you feel uncomfortable or horrified or dismayed. And I would argue that it would be perfectly reasonable to see this as a man writing about a sense of horror of what it's like to be a man, rather than a man specifically with a sense of horror, rather than a man writing from a woman's point of view. And that seems to me like a completely legitimate thing under any circumstances to be allowed to write about, even if one was going to permit a kind of police force that says you can or can't write about this. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that the biggest sort of quote unquote problem that I encounter is to do with people making assumptions about me and my motivations that I think are not about me, they're about them. They're about their anticipations and their own, in a way, prejudices or instincts. And that's why largely with this movie, I stepped back from sort of quote unquote interpretations, because I thought, you know what, it doesn't matter what I say. People would just tell me I was doing it for this reason. Whatever I say, I could wave a flag saying no, and they'd say, no, you're saying yes. So, you know.
Absolutely. Of course, you wrote the script of this movie, but I think that for a movie like that, having the chance to confront yourself with the actors is essential. And I would like to know if did Jessie and Rory help you to better shape their characters, or maybe some details of the story?
Yeah, they absolutely did. They helped me to shape their own characters. They also helped to shape each other's characters. So some of the lines spoken by the vicar were actually proposed by Jessie. So it wasn't just Rory proposing new material or me saying, hey, how about we do it like this? It was really the product of a three-way discussion that we had over about 2 weeks, when we were really examining the script and taking it apart, putting it back together. And so the short answer is yes, absolutely.
I think that this movie wants the audience to find their own interpretation of their story. But I also think that what we see is also an interpretation of Harper's own story.
Yes.
And what happened to her husband. What do you think about it?
You're absolutely right. I agree strongly. When you say what do I think about it, do you mean what do I think in terms of the reason for the husband's death?
No, more in general, because I think that we talk about how people can judge you for choosing to do this movie, and you say, I can have a flag on my hand and say no, and they say yes. But I think that also this movie is about interpretation from the audience, but also about from the characters.
So yeah, what I actually, I mean, really what I think is that virtually everything is interpretation. Whether it's fictional characters within a story or real audiences watching a fictional story, or a real person buying a glass of orange juice, which one person says is delicious and another person says is too sweet. That the whole thing is essentially a rolling state of subjective interpretation. And what I tried to do in this film was to embrace that, and to have, in a way, a conversation that takes place on a deliberately subjective level. So rather than try to make something objective and then have it be forced to encounter people's subjective opinions, which is, I think, what normally happens, I just thought, no, let's just go full steam right into the sort of strange dream state of subjective interpretations, and just that's where it will exist.
I recognize many things in this movie about my everyday life as a woman. I think about the anger, the fear, the feeling of being, of blame projected by others, and also I think about the will to give up at something I like because I feel in danger. I would like to know if you had the chance to talk about other women about this. If other women you know saw the movie and they said, "I recognize myself in Harper."
Yeah, absolutely. But I'd also say that in my experience, going back a long time, I would say women have been saying that to me forever. Whether it's my mother when I was a child or when I was a teenager, the sort of people I began to meet, or as a young adult, I've never not been hearing that. The strange thing is that even though I have always been hearing that, always, so you would expect by now, the time I'm in my early 50s, I wouldn't exactly accept it, but I'd be used to it. I wouldn't be surprised by it. There are some things that have happened to my young teenage daughter on public transport that simply blow my mind. I find it absolutely staggering. And so even though I've been hearing this for a long time, I still have not lost the ability to be surprised by it. Not just surprised, but shocked, really, truly shocked. So I think, yes, I've been hearing about it, but I clearly haven't yet been hearing enough.
Thank you. This movie has moments of horror and moments of ridiculousness. And I would like to know how important it was for you to find the right balance during the writing process for these two elements.
Oh, actually, it was extremely important because, in fact, I thought it was vital. Because I think that in the realm of behaviors that I was thinking about and feeling concerned about and trying to make sense of in myself, some of them are completely pathetic. Some of them are rather silly and can even be quite funny. And some of them are incredibly intimidating and dangerous. And sometimes they can move in real life from funny to dangerous really very quickly, within the space of seconds. And so it felt important for me personally that these things were bumping up against each other in the film, because that's what felt true to me.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been really a pleasure. I had a chance to talk with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.